Well, it looks like my video cut short on my last lesson, and so we actually have one more section on our pay and taxes lesson in our earning power unit. Sorry about that, but we'll get through it this time and we'll get on to a new lesson on our next video. When we left off, I had assigned to you all this figure the net pay assignment. It's pretty difficult if you take a look at it, and all you had to do was situation A. So you got a new job and it was your job to figure out how much you were actually going to have for take-home pay. So you had $30,000 for a salary, and then we had to figure out with all of the deductions, how much was your total tax deduction, your total deductions, and then your net pay. So all we had you do is figure out situation A. So your gross pay, you get paid twice a month. So if you take $30,000, you divide it by 24. 30,000 divided by 24 is $1,250 that you're getting a month. And in this situation, you're not giving any contributions to your retirement or any pre-tax deductions. So your taxable pay, you owe tax on that $1,250. Now, the federal tax income, it says that you're going to owe $129 of federal tax income, but that doesn't include your state income, your Social Security, and your Medicare taxes. So in order to figure those numbers out, you have to take this $1,250 and you're going to multiply it by 4.63%. And right before we ended, I said you have to move this decimal place over 2 places. So 4.63% as a decimal would actually be 0.0463. And I'm going to multiply that by the $1,250. And I get that $57.88, so we'd want to round that up to $57.88 is how much I'm going to pay in my state income taxes. $57.88. So I'm going through this. You can check your work, but it's also great if you weren't sure what to do. Here's a great way for you to just make sure that you know the process. So Social Security tax, 0.62% times that 1,250. 0.62% or 6.2% would actually be 0.062 times 1,250. That gives me $77.50. $77.50 that I owe in Social Security tax, and then 1.45% from Medicare, which is 0.145 times 1,250. That's $18.13. Take that 5 and round up to 13. So $18.13. $18.13. So to figure out the total tax deduction, you would take number 4, 5, 6, and 7 and add all of those together to get your total tax deduction. And if you put that in your calculator correctly, you would get that $282.51 is deducted out of taxes. In this job, you also have $15.71 for union dues. So if you add boxes 8 and 9, you're going to get how much is taken out of your paycheck. So when you add box 8 and 9, you get that $298.22 was taken out of that paycheck. So that much money is coming out. You only had $1,250 to start with. Well, if we subtract these two numbers, box number 3 minus box number 10, the take-home pay is significantly lower. The take-home pay is $951.78. So while you think you might be getting a lot of money, $1,250 every 2 weeks, you're really only getting $951.78. So if you did this math correctly from that last video, you would get this much money, $951.78 as your take-home pay. But there are also 2 other situations that you could look at as well to see what is the best choice. So situation B says your employer will match a portion of your contributions to a retirement fund. So if you want to take advantage of this, you have $100 deducted from each paycheck to build your retirement fund. And this is a pre-tax deduction. So that means that your income taxes are calculated after you subtract this. So how would the pre-tax deduction impact your total taxes on your net pay? That's what we're going to figure out next. Your job is to go through situation B, figure out the taxable pay. So we would take out this $100 from the taxable pay. So you would have a result, if you subtracted, you would actually only have to pay tax on $1,150, which is going to reduce your federal income tax and will reduce the amount of taxes that you're paying as well. So I want you to go through situation B using $1,150 to find the state income tax, the Social Security, and the Medicare tax. Do that right now. Pause this video as you do it. When you come back, you can press play, and I will have the answers for you. All right, it's time for the big reveal. If you take $100 out for a pre-tax deduction, that means that you have $1,150 that you have as taxable pay. Your federal income tax was reduced to $114. State income was $53.48. Social Security $71.30. Medicare $16.68. That means a total tax deduction of $255.46. So that's about $30 less that you were paying if you take out the $100 on top. You still have the same amount of union dues. So if you look at your total tax deduction, add up your union dues, you would get $271.17 that's coming out. But this is coming out of that $1,150. So your net pay is a little bit lower. It's $878.83. So you have about $75 less than you would if you didn't take the retirement fund contribution. But because you took that money out, you took $100 out at the top, and your employer is also giving you $100, you're kind of getting more money. I hope you see that. So you might have $78 less right now, but you're going to have $200 more once you retire. Well, there's a third option too. There's a situation C. Situation C, at your one-year review, you received good news. You've earned a 3% raise for taking on new responsibilities and being a valued employee. So you have to recalculate your net pay to see how your raise impacts your tax liability and net pay. So a 3% raise would mean that you are now making $1,287.50 at every paycheck. And this is including that retirement contribution that you're going to take out. So your taxable pay now is $1,187.50. Now that does increase your federal income tax to $120. Now let's look at these situations and figure out your state income tax again. The total tax deduction, that's where you add up boxes 4 through 7. Your total union deductions, add boxes 8 and 9. And then your net pay. Subtract box 3 and box 10. Pause this video as you do that. When you come back and press play, we'll have the answers for you. Okay, situation C, here we go. With all the different numbers, you should have a total net pay of $905.96. There are a few things that they're asking you to do. They want the differences between C and A, option C and A, and the difference over 1 year of C and A. So to figure that out, we're going to come up to the top, and if you continue to contribute, or we're going to answer these questions. What's the difference between your original gross pay, A1, and the gross pay after your raise, and C1? So you're going to use subtraction. We're going to take, and we're going to say letter C, right here, $1,287.50 minus $1,250. The difference is $37.50. Now, if you multiply that by 24, because you get paid 24 times in a year, the difference over 1 year, so to get from here to this next box, you're going to multiply by 24. The difference is $900. You're making $900 extra in 1 year just because of a 3% raise. The difference in how much you contributed to retirement is $100, so C minus A is 100. If you multiply that by 24, this is $2,400. That's the difference. So you are earning $2,400 for later in your life. Taxable pay is interesting. You have a difference of negative $62.50. So that means there was a little bit more of taxable pay, and when you multiply that by 24, there is $1,500 more that you have for taxable pay. So even though you were making more money, you had less money that you had to pay taxes on because you took that deduction. So for a total tax deduction, that means that you paid $16.68 less. If I take C minus A, $16.68 less that you had to pay on taxes. And when I multiply that by 24, because of that $100 pre-tax deduction, you are paying $400.32 less in taxes than if you didn't take the deduction, even without having a salary increase. What becomes really cool is looking at your net pay. Just taking $100 out of your account each month or each pay period, you're only earning $45.82 less than if you had a 3% less increase and you didn't take that $100 out. Over the course of a year, that's $1,099.68 that you didn't get. But if you think about it, you're still making about $2,400 for retirements to be saved later. So kind of tricky, but this is a really cool way to show you that taking out some of those pre-tax deductions, it really does make it so that you're paying less in taxes and that you have more money saved up later. All right, well, that actually does finally conclude it for this lesson. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.